Big Mo here with Predator Masters, coming to you with this episode of Predator Hunting 101. And in this episode, we're calling it 3 Strikes and They're Out. This is Rigo. Rigo is a newer member to Predator Master community. Rigo reached out to me. He had some questions regarding how to get started with predator hunting, tips, tactics, equipment, so on and so forth. So rather than spending a bunch of time going back and forth with private messages, I just reached out to Rigo and volunteered to take him out, give him, let him see what we do in person rather than just talk about it. And the idea was hopefully it would help to shorten his learning curve. So we went back and forth a little bit on some scheduling and got a hunt scheduled and met up and went out to an area that I know has dogs out there. I've seen them out there. I've shot them out there. So Rigo and I met up dark 30 one morning and got out to call this area. It's a good area. I know there's a lot of dogs out there. Rigo and I went over some basic general information about how the hunt was going to go, and I assured him that even if he made a mistake, there was plenty of coyotes out there, and we were going to do plenty of stands that day. So this is the area for our first stand. We got in there before sunup, and as you can see, it's kind of got a weird dogleg shape there. Up to the top of the picture, there's a wash, a real thick, brushy area. But then there's kind of an open spot down there in that corner. And then you got some fields down there to the south. So Rigo and I drove in up into that corner and buried the truck, and then kind of slid in there into that upper corner so that we gave those coyotes the wash and the brush out ahead of us to make them feel more confident. Now it is April, so coyote calling is a little bit tougher. The coyotes have paired up by this point and probably have mated, so they're not moving around as much as we're used to them doing. So Rigo and I knew that we had to get close to these coyotes to get them to come in. As you can see here in the picture, the wind there is coming in from our right, which is actually from the east. So I made sure to point that out to Rigo so that he could understand how we were going to use the wind to play into our stand. So with the wind coming in from our right there, which is to the east, I knew that we were going to have to be real careful about how we set up. There's that big berm that's over there to the north. I expected those coyotes to kind of come in on that berm, or maybe even swing down around the brush out in front of us to try to catch the wind on the call. So we parked the truck down in that southern corner and buried it pretty well, and then we came sliding in through the fence there, kicked loose some cows that were out there grazing out in that field. And again, we were trying to work that edge to give the coyotes the wash, but at the same time give us the opportunity to watch that berm and watch out into the brush there where those cattle were, so that the coyotes could get caught coming in downwind. Here's a close-up view of our stand. That's me, Mo, the M, and then I've got Rigo sitting right next to me, and then the caller is out there so that if the coyotes come in from the downwind side, they're not going to pick up our scent. We've got a fence line down there to our south, so I really expect these coyotes to come in on the berm up there to the north of the call, or to come out and around through the brush that's out there to the west side of the call. So when I get Rigo set up, I really wanted to try to limit the amount of areas that he was going to have to watch. And so realistically, I thought that these coyotes were going to come in one of 3 possible ways. So I pointed those out to Rigo so that he could kind of keep an eye on those. And then I'm sitting right next to him so that I can keep an eye on him as well and try to back him up in case a coyote comes in where he doesn't get to see it. Now, I'd warned Rigo that this time of year was pretty tough calling. Again, the coyotes aren't moving around as much as we're used to, but I've tried all my basic calls at this point, so now it's time to try something new, or what I call my 3 strikes rule. So now I'm going to roll out with a brand new howl, a howl that I don't use very much, or haven't used very much to this point. It's from MFK, and so I throw this howl out there, and I just want to let that howl sit for a second, and then I'm going to try something that I haven't tried to this point, which is a woodpecker call. And as you're going to hear, I get a coyote responding to us. Coyote's back over to the east there, off to our right. So I get Rigo's attention. He had never heard a coyote respond before. So I knew we were onto something because we were obviously playing something that this coyote kind of liked because it was responding to us. So we start hearing the howls. They're off to the east, and it sounds like that coyote seems to be pacing kind of north and south along the edge of that wash. And for some reason, that coyote doesn't seem to want to come through. So I'm going to try to work that coyote with a variety of different howls now and maybe some fight sequences. Since obviously the howls got its attention, I want to see if I can get it to commit and come through the wash there and come up onto that berm. So I don't want to play anything too aggressive at this point. I know this coyote's kind of hung up, doesn't seem to want to come out there. So I'm just going to roll with some bird calls here and see if I can get that coyote to come out. But at this point, it really doesn't seem like that coyote wants to come in and commit. So I go back to what got its attention the first time, that howl that I was using, and see if we can get him more interested, maybe get him a little bit more aggressive, see if we can get him to come out. But when that doesn't work, I tried to switch over to a little less aggressive howl. Unfortunately, this coyote just would not commit. It howled at us for a little while, and eventually it goes quiet and probably moved off. So I was a little bit bummed to not be able to get that coyote to come in and commit. That's every caller's dream, is to take out a new hunter and get them a coyote on their first stand. But we made contact, and Rigo was tickled pink to be able to hear one howl back. And we now had a better idea about what kind of calls they were going to respond to. So I told Rigo about my 3 strikes rule, where I'm going to roll the stand 3 times the same way. And if it's not working, then I'm going to switch up something. It may be I'll remove a call. I may add a call. I may change the amount of time that we're on stand. I may change volume. I'm going to change one thing, and then I'm going to go ahead and call that stand 3 more times that new way and see what happens. And if it doesn't work, then I'm going to switch up to something different. So Rigo and I called a few more stands and ended up kind of getting the same reaction. We saw one come in, but it just wouldn't commit. It came up, but again, it was responding to that MFK howl. So now I know that I'm going to roll that in, but I need to play something a little bit different, maybe that they haven't heard. So on this next stand, we slide in, again, another great big wash. I really like this wash because this could be an area that coyotes could den up in. There's a lot of high banks and a lot of soft ground that they can dig into. So there's some active fields there over to the west. Rigo and I are going to approach from the north and try to slide in down here into this corner and see if our changes in the call sequence are going to work. We're still going to roll with that MFK howl, but now we know that some other rodent calls like prairie dogs and some rat distress seem to be getting some more positive results. So it's time to go ahead and hang up the rabbit calls and maybe switch over to those and see what happens. So as Rigo and I are entering the area, I'm pointing out all the things that really attract me to this area. We've got some cattle that are actively grazing out there to the east. We've got active fields over there to the west. To the south of us, we've got a lot of undeveloped desert. So we're going to approach from this north and try to slide in up next to this wash and try to stay out of the wind. The wind was shifting on us a little bit, but we discussed how we were going to roll in that MFK howl that we had used earlier, along with some of the other rodent sounds that seem to have gotten us more of a positive response, and were able to get us some eyes on a coyote on a previous stand. So as we start to make our approach, I showed Rigo how the wind had shifted. The wind was coming up from the south now, so this was going to make it a little bit more difficult. It was going to tighten up on our shooting lane a little bit, but I told him that that wasn't going to necessarily be a problem, because that was also going to help funnel the coyotes into us and keep our scent away from them. So I point out to Rigo that their most likely approach is going to be coming up kind of from the southeast. So that's me, that's Mo. I'm on the fence line, and I got Rigo off to my left with the collar over there kind of in front of him. So I've got the collar pointing towards that thick brushy tree line. Can't really see any coyotes coming in from there, but if they're going to come up from downwind, then they might likely pop up out of there. So I'm kind of hedging my bets here. So I've kind of got Rigo splitting his areas there to the left and the right of the collar, and then I'm just there kind of watching down the edge of that fence line, which borders that big thick wash. So since that howl worked out so well earlier, I start off with that. Again, I'm just going to let that howl kind of hang out there, and then I want to kind of calm the area down and maybe make it sound like a coyote's found something that it's feeding on. And so I'm going to go ahead and roll into the crows and see if we can't get these coyotes interested in what we're doing. So now I'm going to play the crow calls and then go ahead and switch into some prey distress calls to try to make it sound like the crows and the coyote have found something to feed on. Now I'm watching this fence line with the idea that if I get eyes on a coyote, I can get Rigo's attention, get him set up for the shot off there to the right. Otherwise, he's watching off to the left there of the call, just in case one of those coyotes comes up out of that other wash, that brush line, and tries to play the wind. The wind is coming in from my right here across. I see movement down there to the left and slightly behind that big tree, and here comes this coyote walking along that fence line. And unfortunately, I think that coyote got eyes on the collar, and it knew something was up. I didn't think the coyote was going to hang around for much longer, so I had to go ahead and take the shot. I hit the coyote, put it down, but ultimately Rigo had to finish it off. So Rigo did get to shoot his first coyote, even if I got the first shot on it. But more importantly, Rigo got to see how we set up our stands, kind of things that I'm looking for, and he got to see the 3 strikes rule in action, and he got to see how we could use that 3 strikes rule to lock into the pattern of these coyotes. Coyotes tend to be pattern oriented during different times of the year, and if you're able to kind of pick up on their pattern, then you're going to stay locked into them and your production is going to skyrocket. If you're struggling to find that pattern, you could flounder and waste a lot of time out there. So me personally, I found that my 3 strikes rule really works out to help cut down on that learning curve, to figure out that pattern so that I can lock into it faster, and then I know if it shifts on me, then I know what's going to start working. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed watching how we use the 3 strikes rule, and hopefully you guys can use that to your advantage. Again, if you want more information on that, get on over to PredatorMastersForums.com and join up, and then get involved with the conversation over there on Predator Hunting 101, where we're going to be posting up this video so that you can learn from more experienced, successful predator hunters. We got a ton of them on our forum. great community, and I'm sure you guys can find somebody that's more than willing to not only help you, but maybe even take you out and show you how some of these techniques can be used. This is Big Mo with Predator Masters. Good luck and good hunting.